thank you everybody who is already here, and welcome to CodeLabs Academy last event in our Women in Tech series. Thank you everybody. I see some faces, some names that have been with us since the beginning of the series, so that means a lot. We gave 4 different women from the tech industry, some data scientists, some engineers, some designers, to give their stories about how they got started and how you can get started in tech. Today's guest is Kornelija, and she's going to tell us about herself and her path in data science. But before we start the presentation, I have 2 organizational points. The first thing, if you have any questions throughout the session, please just post them in the chat, and we'll answer them at the end of the presentation, all of the questions, so don't worry about that. And the other thing I'd like you to know is that we're recording this session, so we can post it on our YouTube channel later in case anybody missed it. Yeah, so that's all from me. And since this event is all about Kornelija, Kornelija, why don't you take a stage?
Yeah, sure. So I hope everyone can see my screen. And yeah, as Jagoda introduced me, I'm Kornelija. I'm working as a data scientist at Ramboll, Copenhagen. So here I am in Denmark. And I would like to start just by talking a bit more about my experience and how I got into data science, the challenges I have encountered, and also a bit more about my current role, about some projects I'm working on. So when I was younger, when I was 19 years old, I was in high school, I imagined that my professional timeline would look like that. I get my bachelor's degree, I get master's degree, I get my first job, I start building career, and at some point in the future, I peak, I achieve my goals, I retire, and I live happily ever after. That's how I imagine it, very straightforward, very step-by-step. And well, of course, perhaps it's also same for you, but my timeline actually looks more like that. So there's been lots of upsides and downs, and lots of loops, and lots of being stuck in certain places. And I started about 10 years ago. I was doing my bachelor's, and back then I really imagined myself as being a criminal psychologist. So working in a forensic field, I watched lots of CSI. I found it fascinating, and I got into a criminology degree in Lancaster, UK. So I moved from my home country, that is Lithuania, to England. And very soon I realized it's not how I imagined it would be. It's not how it was portrayed on TV. It was something else. And I realized that psychology was a better fit for me. So I changed my degrees. In the first week, I quickly got a student job, which was just washing dishes in a restaurant. I worked lots and I studied lots, and I was quickly promoted to chefs, which meant working even longer hours. And of course, the best timing possible, just before exams, I burnt out, and it was quite bad. So I even ended up in accident and emergency section in a hospital. And it was not great, but I picked myself up. I managed to complete exams. I got decent grades. And right after that, I decided that the best way to recover is to go back straight to work, doing the same thing that I did before, because I was so scared of being unemployed. I was very scared of not having financial security, and I guess mostly I was scared of not knowing what I'm going to do. So I did that. I went back into the kitchen. I spent another half a year working as a chef. I met some very cool people. I got some good experience, but long work hours resulted in another burnout. And I was so exhausted that sometimes I would walk past my house. I couldn't remember PIN code. I would not sleep well at night. And at that point, I realized that perhaps it is time to take a break. So I did. And I came back to my country. I came back to Lithuania, and I spent some time just being unemployed. Later on, I picked an internship in recruitment agency, and I worked here for a couple of months. And I also realized that perhaps it's not the ideal path for me, even though it just matched ideally what I studied, psychology and organization studies. I knew that perhaps it's not me. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not the people. And then I changed my career once again. I became a project coordinator at a translation agency, and I stayed there for a few years. And it was a very exciting time of my life. I worked with hundreds of people from all over the world. I got to learn all these different technical tools, and I think that was a workplace where I really became interested in data science and language technologies and things like machine translation, machine learning. And after a couple of years, I felt like I was ready to progress. And unfortunately, in a workplace, there wasn't much space to progress. And I realized it's only in my hands, my future, and what I can do with it. I started looking into master's programs, mostly abroad. And I found this program in Copenhagen called IT and Cognition. I applied for it because it just seemed like a perfect match to match my psychology studies, to match what I was doing at the moment, and to match what I was going to do in the future. I got in, and just a few days after, I was already on the plane going to Copenhagen. And I think at that point, I realized how scared I was of this change, of leaving my adult life behind, my adult apartment, my friends, my salary, my cat, my everyone. And I was, okay, I might be making a big mistake, because it meant also going back to student jobs, flipping tacos, working nights, living in a dorm, and all of that was scary because it meant going back. And I wasn't sure if I was gonna make it, because the course proved to be quite difficult, and I was really struggling. But I did go through, and by the end of the course, I already had a job secured at Ramboll. That's where I am right now. And I've been working here ever since, and learning and building my skills. And at this point, I don't know what's gonna happen in a year, in 5 years. I really don't, because I learned that, well, career is not really so straightforward, and it's not really so linear. And who knows what could happen, but I am quite happy where I am right now, and it's going all right, and I'm very excited about what's gonna happen next. So to continue, so what does psychology and project management and kitchen have in common, right? So the answer is, well, actually not so much, but all of these experiences provided me with excellent backgrounds and skills for being a data scientist, because psychology taught me how to be methodical, how to be detailed and run scientific experiments. And it is much needed when I'm building machine learning models. And in the kitchen, I truly learned the importance of teamwork and how collaboration works. And I will always appreciate the multitasking skills I got from working in my kitchen, and communication skills as well. And finally, project management. Like, I learned how to plan ahead, how to oversee upcoming obstacles, and how to avoid them. And at some points, I really thought I was wasting time. I was stuck in the wrong places at the wrong time, stuck in a rut and loops. But now I know that all of these experiences provided with something invaluable. And I really, really appreciate that. I really appreciate all these odd jobs I had, all these obstacles I had, because I know that without that, I wouldn't be who I am today and where I am today. And I'm sure that it's also going to be very, very useful in the future. So now I would also like to talk about some of the challenges that I had coming to where I am. And I will start by talking about some unhealthy stereotypes that I have learned and fallen for. And some of these might look very old-fashioned and very backwards. And there are backwards and old-fashioned, and it's only coming from my own personal experience. And I'm not proud for believing these things, but I think that was also the things that stopped me from going into tech at younger age. So the first one, of course, is tech field is for men. And for a while, I couldn't see myself as working in tech or some kind of corporate job, some kind of mathy job, because I thought it was, well, for boring people. I thought it was a boring job, and that perhaps all of these technical things are for men only. And even though I enjoyed problem solving, I just bought into this narrative that this is not a field for girls. And unfortunately, it was partly due to my teachers in high school and in middle school as well, that would very much be divisive. And another stereotype that's coding, for example, is boring. That is also something I learned in school because in the very first day when we had IT classes, the teacher said, well, we have two groups. We have a coding group and we have graphic design group. And I think that you boys would enjoy coding more, and girls, you should go for graphic design. So of course, I did what every girl did in my class, and I went for the graphic design class, which meant playing around with Photoshop for a day or two, and then spending the rest of the time on whatever social media network was popular at that time. And now I really regret it, but I believed it, and I believed it for so long. I also believe that algebra or math in general has nothing to do with real life, and I will not need it. To imagine my surprise when I walk into a computer vision class many years later and I see just a board full of equations and formulas and like mostly letters I don't even recognize. I felt like this stereotype just kicked me so much in the ass, because in school I didn't think I would need it. And whenever I asked teachers like, oh, what's the point in this? How am I going to use it in real life? Everyone would just like shrug or say things like, oh, you just learn it to pass exams. And I wish I found this motivation to learn math earlier, because it's not just about getting a degree in tech. I think it's also about developing your mind in a certain way, how you think. And yes, and finally, the last stereotype, probably like one of the more stupid ones, is that if you want no drama, work with guys, work with men. And I worked with men, like all men. I worked in female collectives and teams. I work in mixed teams. And it really has nothing to do with gender. Both men and women are capable of talking behind backs and gossiping and all that stuff. And it really is more about maturity and the culture that you have in your team, and not gender. But anyways, so here I was, 19 years old and full of all of these stereotypes and beliefs. And it wasn't until I started working in the kitchen, which was kind of hostile, but also very exciting environment full of adrenaline, where I realized that these gender roles are bullshit. And for several years, I worked being like the only girl in the team. And I was very, very shy at that time. And I had to learn how to shout at men twice my size and twice my age. And it was a scary experience. But once I did, I realized, no, this is nonsense. Like, there are no female or male jobs. And I think part of this experience also helped me to believe that I can really do anything. Yeah. Speaking of cultures, I would also like to talk about competitive and collaborative cultures, and that unhealthy competition can create anxiety and imposter syndrome. And sure, some competition can be fun and can even motivate people. But when I just started my studies for the first time in my life, I felt like I couldn't catch up academically. And it was a shock for me, and I felt stressed and I felt depressed, and I was bottling all of these feelings inside of me because I felt like I didn't really belong. And it didn't help if the course was very mixed. So we had people who had zero programming experience, like me, and we had people who were already working in the field. And it also didn't help that some people were dissing the course and saying things like, oh, this is so easy, this is so basic. I would listen to them and think, okay, I must be so stupid that I just do not get the basics. I'm just like struggling to open terminal command line. I'm struggling to navigate. I'm struggling to do the most basic things. And Then I talked to my girlfriends from the same course, and I learned that a lot of people were feeling the same. And we formed a study group, and we were helping and supporting each other. It was so nice because it felt like you have like your own cheer squad, and you would say you're awesome, you can do it. More experienced girls would help us to understand the tasks, help us to complete them. And yeah, in the end, we all graduated with great grades, and most of the people who are dissing a course in the beginning ended up like falling out because of competitiveness and just general like clashes in personality, I guess. And fortunately, at this point, I can say that I work in a very healthy environment, in a healthy culture, and my colleagues are supporting me, and I'm supporting my colleagues. And I think it only proves how important it is, how important it is to feel comfortable in your group, how important it is not to be afraid to speak up when you are struggling and when you need some help. And then, yeah, people can be really good and really supportive. So yeah, this is basically how I got to where I am now. And I will talk a bit more about my current role and projects. And as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm working for Ramboll in Denmark, and Ramboll is an architecture, engineering, and consultancy company. It has a very strong presence all over the world with over 16,000 experts, and is very strong in the Nordics. And Ramboll is creating sustainable solutions across building, transport, energy, environment, health, water management, consulting, architecture, and landscape. So it's very much engineering-focused company. And I am working for advanced analytics teams, which is within a support organization. So it means that you're not really facing external clients that much, but we are providing solutions and products for our support units. So for example, finance and clients and markets and OPEX and other IT. And we are working with machine learning, explorative data analysis, optimization, and simulation. We are 4 people with our tech leads. And yeah, so far we managed to deploy a couple of models, and we are very close to deploying a few more. And it's been a good fun. We are focusing a lot on learning and improving and just doing exciting things. So I really like it that we have always freedom to explore what's important for us. Yes. And one of the first projects that I did was using NLP, which stands for Natural Language Processing, to accelerate IT ticket resolution. And that was the very, very first project that I did. And then I just started at Ramboll. Whenever a user had some kind of IT issue, the user would go to the portal, choose a category and subcategory from a drop-down list, and then write something down and send it to the IT. And based on the selection of category and subcategory, the ticket would get assigned to a certain group. But the thing is the system was very confusing, and users would often choose the wrong one and send the ticket to the wrong assignment group. So of course, then the resolution time would get increased, and the user would get frustrated. Maybe the work would stop. It was not ideal. And we came up with the idea that this could be automated. So instead of user choosing a category, perhaps a machine learning model could do it for them. So the user would only have to type it in, and everything else would be done behind the scenes. So we deployed this model last summer, and it was the first machine learning model deployed by Ramboll within the organization. And since then, it handled over 32,000 tickets, and that's just a predictive ticket routing model. And we had no downtime, and we achieved 89% accuracy, which is quite good. And most importantly, like, we got so much good feedback from the users that it is a lot easier to use. It's more intuitive, and the tickets get resolved faster. To dive a bit deeper into the setup, we have actually two models running behind it. So we have incident search suggestion and we have predictive ticket routing. So when the user is typing the issue, he or she is provided with a list of potential matches. And these matches are basically created from historical tickets from previous incidents, some of the most common ticket summaries. And if she or he finds the issue, you just need to click on it, perhaps write something more down, something more detailed, and then send it off. And then it's already taken care of. If, however, you cannot find what you're looking for, then you type in the text, and then the model, based on the text, would assign the ticket to the predicted group. And IT support would either resolve the ticket or reassign it to the correct group. So this is how it works. And now I'll dive a bit more deep into the setup for this machine learning model. And to build a model, we need numeric data so that calculations can be done. But in our case, we have text. So how do we convert text to vectors? So first of all, we remove all of the punctuation marks. We remove all of the words that don't really carry much meaning. So it would be words such as please, why, where, are, from, and so on, that don't really have much meaning outside of context. And for the rest of the words, we would turn them into a basic form. So that's how dates would become date and missing would become miss. And then we end up with a dictionary with all of these terms. And we assign terms a value based on how important it is. And the importance is measured on the frequency of a word. So how frequent it is and how often does it appear in a document. So the more unique a word is, the higher value it gets, because it means it should be more important. So now that every word has a numeric association, we have sequences for each of the description the user wrote, and then we can use these sequences for further modeling. So for instance, we can do text clustering and summarization, and here we group similar tickets together. So for instance, tickets about not working teams, all of them would be grouped together based on these sequences of numbers that represent text. And then you would have like a central member, which is like the most representative of them all. And that's how we ended up with over 100 different summaries for the most common tickets. And we send them off to the PEX team, and then the process excellence team would review it. And that's what became the basis for the incident suggestion list. And that's what the users are seeing now. And of course, since then it's been revised many of times, and both manually and by us. And I think there's going to be another round where we add more stuff. But yeah, it's been working quite well since. And yeah, I am quite proud of this project, because it was my very first professional project, and I really feel good about knowing that it's being used by so many people every day, and that it actually made people's life easier. So yeah, that's quite rewarding. Yeah, and this is the end of my presentation. And just some take-home messages from me is that careers are not linear, that we should embrace ups and downs and take the most from the experience, but it's never too late to change direction, and that sometimes you need to take a step back to leap forwards. Burnout is not fun. Take care of yourself and support each other. It goes a long way, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Yeah, do you have any questions?
Thank you so much, Kornelija. Please, guys, you can either type in any questions you have, or just join us with your lovely voice if you want. We have a first question from Catherine. Thank you, Catherine. Before starting your master's program, did you have any hard skills in data science or machine learning? If so, where did you pick these up?
Yeah, so no, not really. I didn't really have any skills in machine learning or coding. I did have some knowledge of data because of my psychology masters. So part of it was like running certain statistical tests. So I knew a bit about that. But outside of my bachelor's, I haven't really applied this anywhere else. And yeah, as I said, I didn't have any coding experience.
Did that prove difficult, or how was your learning
Yeah,
experience?
for me, it was very difficult. I'm not gonna lie. Um, I'm not sure. Perhaps it was like part of how my learning was structured. It took me a while to discover the right resources. It took me a while to discover what works for me. And yeah, I'm very much like a hands-on kind of person. So I think it wasn't until the very end of my master's, when I was doing industrial thesis, that I actually started picking up these skills. Not until I did internship, not until I started work. But yeah, once I did, at first I really felt like I have no idea what I'm doing, and the imposter syndrome, of course. I think sometimes I still feel like I have no idea what I'm doing, but if I look back at myself like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, then I remember how much I actually learned.
That's very interesting. So you would say only from the moment you started working, it all came together.
Any minute now.
That's great. Ayman has your hand up. Sure, no problem.
So I have a question. I have graduated from India. I have completed my bachelor's and master's degree in computer science engineering. So how can I take up a career because I don't have any experience and I feel there are no companies who are welcoming without experience.
Mhm. Well, first of all, congratulations. Thank you already did so much. I'm not really sure like how it works in India, but I think perhaps like an internship would always be a good start. Like I did unpaid internship for almost half a year, and then when I was writing my thesis with a company, of course, that was also unpaid. But I feel like it gave me quite like enough skills to get my first job, and I understand your frustration. Like it really is sad and embarrassing that companies are not hiring people without experience and are not willing to invest in these young professionals. So yeah, don't give up and keep on looking and try to get some kind of unpaid experience if that's possible for you. Yeah, just be patient.
Are there any internship programs that I can enroll in?
Uh, yeah, I think so.
Students.
Yeah, Ramboll itself, like I think, like we do have a strong presence in India as well and support organization. I'm not so sure about the computer engineering profiles and what's the status of that. But if you like, you can always go on the Ramboll's page, or you can ping me on LinkedIn or send me an email, and I'll send you the careers page so you can have a look and see if you can find anything relevant.
Thank you. That will be helpful.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ayman. Thank you so much, Cornelia. Anybody else has any questions? I just want to say that for internships, we are starting a networking group, but you can join in maybe some dedicated networking data science groups. There are quite a lot. We're just starting one with all the participants of this series, just so if people want to stay in touch, go ahead. Yeah, I also want to say personally, I find it quite inspiring, and even the fact that you mentioned imposter syndrome, Cornelia, is just it's good to know that it's you're not alone in this. I also worked in the kitchen. I also washed dishes for many months, and it's nice to hear that many people start like that and can end up in tech positions.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you a lot. Thanks for inviting me. And yeah, I think people should not be. I know what is it. Like I never mention these things in my CVs when I'm applying for like IT related job. But I think maybe people should start doing it more often, because it just shows like your experience, shows resilience. And yeah, we shouldn't be afraid to talk about imposter syndrome either, because I think so many of us are feeling like that. And yeah, I think it's also especially common for women, because perhaps we still feel a bit like outsiders in this field, and we feel like we should be extra good, and sometimes it takes time to become extra good. Yeah.
Of course, we have another question if you still have time.
Yeah, sure.
Amazing. Do you have any projects planned for the future that you can share with us? I really enjoyed seeing how machine learning helped solving the tickets problem, and I'm really looking forward to see it used more in the field.
Yeah, so we're actually thinking on focusing a bit more on the NLP part of machine learning, or the language part. And we are starting this proof of concept project where we're generating CVs from employees' data that we have, so that this could be sent to the clients. It's something that one of the managers brought up, that it takes a lot of time to generate these CVs for the clients. So we're going to try to automate that. We're also trying to link up similar projects and similar employees, so to have like a recommendation system. If you start a new project, you can see people who work on similar things or projects. We're also working a bit on client churn. Just started a project as well, so still in very early stages of workshops with the clients. And yeah, there's quite a few more in the backlog, but yeah, of course, we need time for that.
Yes, sounds great. There was a question about the presentation slides. We're going to post the recording of this session most likely tomorrow. I posted a link to the YouTube channel in the chat, but everybody is going to probably get an email reminder that the video is up. So yeah, thank you, Morteza. Thank you, Cornelia. Yeah, people are looking forward to more to see more progress in the future. That's lovely. Thank you very much, guys. Does anybody else have any questions? I can wait a minute.
Yeah, and thanks a lot, everyone, for showing up and listening. And I hope it was at least somewhat relatable and somewhat useful for you. And thank you for organizing this as well. It was for me a bit of a shock that you wanted to hear me speak. And actually, when I first contacted, I thought that you meant participation, as in like, would you like some free tickets? And then Jennifer, the organizer, she was like, "Oh yeah, so you know, like here's something you can speak about." So like, all right, yeah. Only that I'm terrified of public speaking, but yeah, it was a good experience. So yeah, thanks for letting me do this.
No, well, thank you. We just found that listening to people that got into the field semi-recently is the most beneficial and the most inspiring, rather than some, being a CEO, it's all good and nice, but it's not that interesting or inspiring or useful. We want to hear and see people that got successful and started just like you, in unpaid internships and survived. Because that's the reality of the situation, and we're taking advantage of this new remote environments that where everybody is in, so that we can do public speaking and be a little bit less intimidating. I understand you completely, and thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions? No? Thank you very much. There are some lovely messages in the chat.
Yeah. Oh,
thank you very much, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and obviously don't give up, and yeah, it's normal to feel what you're feeling, but yeah, keep on going, keep on getting experience, whatever it is, and you'll end up where you're supposed to be eventually. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody. On that lovely note, I think we can wrap this up. Look forward to an email with a recording of all this. I think if you have any more questions, I'm sure Kornelija will be able to answer them, maybe on LinkedIn, or you can message us directly as well. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Goodbye. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.